I want to bring in my panel now to talk about all of this because obviously crime is a conversation that comes up politically all the time, and it's very real in some places, not as real as some people fear in other places. John, but San Francisco is mentioned often, politically and otherwise, because there's a feeling there that something has changed in recent years.
Right. There is the absolute perception that San Francisco is kind of the focus of a soft on crime trend. And we're entering a new phase in the crime debate. You know, my late father actually was the head of the organized crime squad in Kansas City during Operation Strawman, which was the basis of the movie Casino. So I grew up having a dinner table conversation about the war on drugs, the war on crime. And what happened is we overreached, we overreacted, and had too many laws that were tough on crime, and then we went the other direction. So I think there's a correction happening. I think he talked about the use of the word overcorrection. That's what's happening right now, where in some cities, particularly San Francisco, you know, the DA was recalled because of his soft on crime stance. And so I think we're moving into a different direction now.
Misty, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the DA has been under scrutiny in San Francisco specifically, but I do think it's such a complicated issue. It's hard to say what the answer is. In this particular case, we don't really know anything about this particular individual to make an assumption about whether or not there's a criminal history or anything like that. And there is a need to scrutinize the laws on the books and make changes and determine that balance between fairness and public safety. And it's not an easy process, and there's not just one answer that we can all employ.
Well, and relative to the last 20 years, crime rates are still very low. They've started to tick up, and I think we know that the pandemic has contributed to that. And in a city like San Francisco, there has been this kind of erosion of the city for a long time, partially because the extreme wealth has mostly left the city, gone to the suburbs, gone out to Silicon Valley, and it's left the city sort of under-resourced and underinvested in. And there's been issues for years. But I think you're right, and I worry very much about this like immediate backlash of, oh, it's because of the bail reform. There's absolutely no definitive evidence that the bail reform laws have contributed to an increase in crime. That is a very knee-jerk reaction. And the fact is that we have had a mass incarceration issue for years, locking people up for extraordinary. We incarcerate more people per capita than any nation on earth. Places like New Orleans, the state of Louisiana, incarcerates more people per capita than anywhere else on the planet. Like, we have an incarceration problem. Crime rates have generally been low, but this stuff hits personally for people, and we want solutions. It's scary. But I think we got to be really careful about suddenly saying that like these hard-fought reforms to keep our prisons from being warehouses are the reason why we're seeing these increases.
Jessica.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I get worried that cases like this, where it's this random act of violence, potentially, we don't know, but where people assume this is a random act of violence and then they get scared, and then how do we create these reactionary laws? We see that constantly in the criminal justice system, where one thing happens to someone and it gets publicized, and then all of a sudden we need all these laws. And like you said, you know, the folks who study this, like the Vera Institute, who have looked into bail reform and, you know, is there any connection to recidivism or an increase in violent crime? And they have found none. So I think when we're looking at this, we can't just say, well, we think that bail reform would do X, Y, and Z. We have to actually look at the data, and we can't just let events that make us feel scared make us do things that harm people on a mass scale.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. We need to talk about this next story. Imagine voting.